The story begins at Sky High, a high school that floats high above the clouds, a school where only kids with superpowers get to study. Every student here has a unique power, and now we meet Will Stronghold, the son of two legendary superheroes, Steve and Josie. Steve has super strength, and Josie can fly with super speed. To hide their identities, they work as real estate agents in the town of Maxwell, but whenever danger strikes, they suit up and save the city. Will also dreams of becoming a superhero someday, but there's one big problem: his powers still haven't shown up. Today is Will's first day at the superhero high school. Steve comes into his room to call him, and Will pretends to lift heavy weights so his dad won't realize he still has no powers at all. Will's best friend Layla has the power to control plants. They've known each other since childhood, and today they're heading to Sky High together. Just as they're leaving, Steve gets an alert. A giant robot is attacking downtown. He and Josie rush off to stop it. Steve knocks the robot out with a single punch, and even pulls out its glowing eye as a victory trophy. A little later, the flying school bus arrives, and Will and Layla hop in. The moment the driver, Ron Wilson, learns Will is the son of Steve and Josie, he treats him with extra respect. Will goes to sit with his friend Zach. Once all the super students are on board, Ron activates the wings of the bus and launches it into the sky. The kids scream in fear, but within moments, they arrive at Sky High, floating proudly in midair. Ron explains, Sky High keeps changing locations in the sky, so no supervillain can attack it. Only a few people, like me, know how to find it. He even gives Will his business card for emergencies. Inside the school, Will and the other freshmen watch older students using their powers, stretching like rubber, running at super speed, and everyone is amazed. But then the bullies show up. Lash, who can stretch his body like rubber, and Speed, who runs like the Flash. They demand school fees from the new kids. Before things get worse, Gwen arrives and stops them. She sweetly explains the school rules to the newcomers, but Will is too distracted by her beauty to hear anything. Soon, Principal Powers welcomes the freshmen and announces that the power placement test will begin shortly, a test that decides whether you become a hero or a sidekick. Coach Boomer storms in to run the test. Each student must come on stage and demonstrate their superpower. Depending on how useful their powers are, Boomer will assign them to hero class or sidekick class. Zach goes first and tries to show his power. Nothing seems to happen until he explains he can glow in the dark. But since that power doesn't impress Boomer, he labels Zach a sidekick. Zach protests, but Boomer blasts him across the room with his sonic boom. Ethan turns himself into a puddle of liquid, still gets sidekick. Magenta is a shapeshifter, but she can only turn into a guinea pig, sidekick, and Boomer continues assigning students one by one. When Layla's turn comes, Boomer asks her to demonstrate her power, but Layla refuses. She believes no one should be judged as a hero or sidekick based solely on their powers. Boomer doesn't like her attitude, so he sends her straight to the sidekick group. At lunch, Will sits with the other sidekicks. Behind him, a boy keeps staring at him intensely. Zach explains, that's War and Peace. His mom is a superhero, but his dad is a supervillain. Your dad put his father in jail for life. That's why Warren hates you. Will ignores it and continues eating. After lunch, Coach Boomer calls Will on stage. Show us your power. Will freezes. He says honestly, I don't have any powers. Boomer doesn't believe him. He thinks Will is joking, so he drops a car on him to force a reaction. Still nothing. Will cries out, I'm telling the truth. I don't have super strength. I don't have anything. Coach Boomer assumed Will could fly just like his mom, so he grabbed him and hurled him across the room. But Will couldn't fly, and he crashed straight into a pile of mats. Boomer was shocked. Without any visible power, he declared Will a sidekick and sent him to the nurse's office for a checkup. The school doctor used her X-ray vision to scan his entire body, but everything seemed normal. Will asked nervously, when will I get my powers? The doctor replied, well, kids who get bitten by radioactive bugs or fall into toxic waste, they wake up with powers the next day, or they don't wake up at all. But inherited powers? There's no fixed timeline. Most kids only have one parent with powers. In rare cases where both parents are superheroes, sometimes the child never gets any powers at all. Will gulped and asked, is there anyone else like me? Someone whose parents were both superheroes, but they never got powers? The doctor nodded. Only one I know. Bus driver Ron Wilson. Both his parents were superheroes, and he didn't get a single power. Will's heart sank. For the first time, he felt like maybe his powers would never come. That evening, he tried to tell his dad the truth, but Steve was way too excited about Will attending Sky High. He said proudly, when I went to Sky High, your grandfather handed over the secret sanctuary to me, and now I'm giving it to you. I've updated the biometric locks. You're the only one besides me and your mom who can open it. He warned, remember, never bring anyone here. This place is for the Stronghold family only. Will unlocked the hidden door, and they walked inside the secret lair. Will was amazed. The underground room was filled with trophies from past battles, including weapons taken from supervillains. Steve even placed the giant robot's glowing glowing eye on a shelf. "This is Royal Pain's pacifier. The day I defeated Royal Pain was the day your mother and I first teamed up. I knew instantly we were meant to be together." He smiled proudly. "One day you'll defeat villains too, and you'll bring their weapons here as trophies. Then the three of us will fight evil together." But neither of them knew that inside the robot's eye was a hidden camera, and somewhere far away, Royal Pain and Stitches were watching them. Still, Will couldn't bring himself to tell his parents he had no powers. Feeling crushed, he climbed up to the rooftop and sat alone. Layla used her plant powers to rise up beside him. She said gently, "So what if you're a sidekick right now? I know someday you'll become a real hero. Being a hero doesn't depend on your powers. It depends on whether you help people or not." The next day, they attended Mr. Boy's hero support class. Zach asked, "When do we pick our superhero name and costume?" Mr. Boy sighed and said, "You don't choose that. On graduation day, a hero chooses you. Then they give you your name and costume. Commander chose me. That's how I got the red and blue outfit." Will asked, "Wait, did you really work with my dad?" "Yes. Haven't Steve or Josie told you anything about me?" Will shook his head. Mr. Boy looked hurt but stayed silent and continued training the sidekicks to assist real heroes in the field. The next day, Lash and Speed were bullying Ron Wilson again, but this time, Will stepped in and stopped them. Surprisingly, they didn't say anything back at that moment. But during lunch, Lash grabbed Will's ankle and yanked him to the ground. Will's entire tray flew across the room and landed right on Warren Peace's table. Warren was furious. Flames burst from his hands as he activated his fire powers. Will tried to avoid a fight, but Warren wasn't listening. He started throwing fireballs at him. Will ran toward the fire alarm to put out the flames, but Lash tripped him again. Terrified, Will hid under a table. To drag him out, Warren started threatening Will's friends, firing blasts toward them. Seeing his friends in danger triggered something inside Will, and suddenly his super strength finally awakened. He punched Warren hard, sending him flying across the cafeteria. Warren charged again, furious, but Will grabbed a fire extinguisher and blasted him until the flames went out. Just then, Principal Powers arrived and marched both boys straight to detention. Warren wanted to fight again, but the detention room was designed to cancel out all superpowers. Here, they were both just normal kids. Principal Powers said firmly, "Sky High teaches you how to use your powers, but how you choose to use them, that's entirely up to you. Do you want to honor your father's legacy, or throw it all away with stupid decisions?" She warned them to think carefully, then left the two sitting in silence. Will tried to put the past behind him and even attempted to become friends with Warren, but Warren refused and threatened to finish him if he ever came near again. Meanwhile, Will's parents finally discovered that he had developed his powers. Steve was overjoyed and gave Will a special gift, but Royal Pain and Stitches were still watching the Stronghold family through the camera hidden inside the robot's eye, waiting for the right moment to steal back the pacifier device. Will's friends were super excited about his new powers and congratulated him non-stop, but because of his strength, Will got promoted from sidekick class to hero class. He didn't want to leave his friends, but they encouraged him to go, so he joined the hero classroom. Professor Medulla was teaching the hero students that day. He paired Will with Gwen as his new lab partner. Their assignment was to build a heat ray. Will had no clue what he was doing, so Gwen used her technopath abilities and built the device instantly. Will was amazed. Gwen offered to be his private tutor, and Will couldn't hide his excitement. At lunch, Will sat with Gwen. Layla and the other sidekicks came to join him, but Penny and her clones filled the entire table, forcing them to leave. Will felt terrible. After lunch, he went to Layla and apologized. Layla forgave him, but as punishment, she told him, "You're taking me to dinner tonight." Will promised he would be there. Later, Lash and Speed started bullying Ethan and Zach again. Will stopped them, which made the bullies furious. They challenged Will to a Save the Citizen match. Will didn't want to fight, but Ethan and Zach accepted the challenge for him. Soon, the practice match began. Lash and Speed took the role of villains, and Will was forced to team up with none other than Warren Peace. The two stepped onto the battle arena, ready for the showdown. Coach Boomer explained the rules. "You and Warren are heroes. You have 3 minutes to save the citizen. Fail, and the practice is over." With that, the challenge began. A dummy citizen was hung above a spinning platform. Every time Will tried to rescue it, Speed zipped in and blocked him. Frustrated, Will slammed his fist into the ground, creating a shockwave that sent Lash and Speed flying. Will grabbed Lash, twisted his stretched limbs, and tied him up using his own body. Lash couldn't move an inch. Meanwhile, Speed ran circles around Warren, cutting off his oxygen. Without air, Warren couldn't ignite his fire powers. Only 20 seconds were left. Will looked at the citizen, then at Warren gasping for breath. He made his choice. He dropped the rescue and grabbed Speed, flinging him straight into Lash. Both villains crashed to the ground. Then Will lifted Warren and threw him toward the spinning platform. Warren blasted the citizen off the trap and saved it just in time. The crowd erupted. They passed the challenge. Will again tried to befriend Warren, but Warren still wasn't interested. Later that day, Gwen came to Will's house to help him with their science project. Steve and Josie adored her instantly. Gwen said sweetly, "I'm the head of the homecoming committee. I'd love for both of you to be the chief guest this year." Of course, Steve and Josie agreed, but Will was so distracted by Gwen that he completely forgot about the dinner he promised Layla. At At the restaurant, Layla waited alone and waited and waited. Will never showed up. Just then, Warren, who worked there, came and sat beside her. Layla told him about her long friendship with Will. Warren smirked. So, basically you've liked Will from the beginning. Layla quickly said, no, I don't like him. We're just friends. Warren smiled softly. You don't need to lie. Everyone at school knows. Even a kid could tell you're in love with him. I don't know why you won't just tell him, but trust me, you'll feel better once you do. His words hit straight into her heart. Layla thought, if I go to homecoming with Will, maybe he'll finally understand how I feel. Back at Will's house, Steve showed Gwen his old school yearbook. He pointed to a girl named Sue Tenney, someone who looked exactly like Gwen. Steve explained, she vanished from school out of nowhere. Some say she became a supervillain. Others say she died. Hearing this, Gwen fell silent. Later, Will drove her home. Before leaving, Gwen asked, will you be my date for homecoming? And since Will liked her, he immediately said yes. She kissed him, and Will floated home on cloud 9. Meanwhile, Royal Pain had finally finished repairing the pacifier and was planning to strike sky high on homecoming night. The next day, Layla gathered her courage and asked, will you be my date for homecoming? But Will interrupted, oh, I'm already going with Gwen. Layla's heart shattered. She said calmly, okay then, I'll go with Warren. Will froze. You're going with that psycho? He's my worst enemy. You don't even know him. Layla said quietly, last night you didn't show up, so I had dinner with Warren, and we became friends. After that, Layla started sitting with Warren and the other sidekicks at lunch. Will felt horrible, but every time he tried to join them, Gwen pulled him away. One night, Steve and Josie were out on superhero duty. Gwen took advantage of the empty house and invited her friends over for a party. Seeing the crowd, Will wanted to invite Layla and the others too, but Gwen stopped him and pulled him into a private room. She led him into the secret sanctuary, kissed him, and distracted him completely. Meanwhile, Speed quietly snatched the pacifier and ran out with it. At that moment, Layla happened to walk past Will's house. Hearing music, she stepped inside. Gwen spotted her immediately and quickly sent Will to get drinks. Layla confronted her. Where's Will? Gwen looked straight at Layla and said, Will is ignoring you. He knows you love him, but he doesn't like you back. Layla's heart sank. She quietly turned to leave. Will saw her and rushed to stop her, but she walked away before he could say a word. Will asked Gwen, what did you say to her? Why did she leave upset? Gwen replied coldly, I just told the truth. You're a hero. She's a sidekick. No matter how hard she tries, she'll never be on your level. Now you have to choose, your real friends or those useless sidekicks. Will was furious. Layla's been my best friend since childhood, and because of your stupidity, she's angry at me. I didn't expect this from you. I've made up my mind. I'm not going to homecoming with you. Just then, Steve and Josie returned. They kicked everyone out of the house after seeing the mess Gwen's party had caused. Will ran to the restaurant and texted Layla to meet him, but she never showed up. Warren stepped up and said, she loves only you. She was using me just to make you jealous. The next night, Josie urged Will to come to homecoming, but he refused. He sat down with his dad's old school yearbook. In one photo, he noticed Sue Tenney holding the pacifier, and now the pacifier was missing from the secret sanctuary. Will realized the truth. Gwen is actually Royal Pain's daughter. He immediately called Ron Wilson for help. Meanwhile, at Sky High, Gwen greeted Steve and Josie warmly, and then revealed the truth. I'm Royal Pain. Everyone was stunned. Royal Pain's voice had always sounded like a man, but that was because her suit used a voice changer. Stitches entered with the pacifier, and Gwen used it to turn Steve and Josie into tiny, crying babies. Then she began turning everyone in the gym into infants. Students tried to escape, but Lash, Speed, and Penny locked all the exits. Layla and the sidekicks opened the ceiling vents to escape from above. At the same time, Ron Wilson flew Will to Sky High. Will crawled through the vents and pulled his friends out. They told him Gwen turned everyone into babies. Will said, then we fight together. Hero or sidekick, doesn't matter. We take her down as a team. Layla was still angry and started yelling at him, but Will silenced her with a quick kiss. Just then, Penny, Lash, and Speed arrived. Will rushed toward Gwen while Layla and the others held off the three villains. Lash searched the bathroom for Ethan, but Ethan slipped into liquid form and dunked Lash's head into the toilet. Speed tried to attack, but Ethan slid right under him, making Speed slip and crash into a wall. Penny attacked Layla with her clones, but Layla unleashed her powers. Vines wrapped around every clone, trapping them all. Penny screamed, go ahead and fight, but Sky High is doomed. Royal Pain shut off the anti-gravity controls. In a few minutes, this whole school will fall out of the sky. They studied the map of the control room. Only Principal Powers could enter, but she was now a toddler, so the team sent Magenta, in her guinea pig form, through the water pipes. Meanwhile, Gwen and Stitches were loading baby superheroes onto a bus. Gwen lifted baby Steve and said, I'll raise them as my own, and create my own supervillain academy. Sky High humiliated me, a brilliant student like Sue Tenney, by labeling me a sidekick. I'll make them all pay and show the world my true power. Suddenly, Will burst into the room. I'm sorry, he said. My parents were responsible for what happened to your mom, but that doesn't mean you should hurt everyone else. Gwen laughed. You idiot. You still don't get it? Sue Tenney isn't my mother. I am Sue Tenney. When the pacifier exploded, it turned me into a baby. Stitches raised me, and now I'm back to finish what I started. Gwen attacked him. Will fought back, knocking her to the floor, but Layla and Warren rushed in, distracting him for a moment. Gwen seized the chance, punched Will hard, and sent him flying out of the building. Will fell from sky high, plummeting toward the earth, but suddenly, just like his mom, he unlocked his flying powers and slammed into Gwen with full force, sending her flying across the room. Gwen suddenly pretended to faint, and Will stopped fighting for a moment. That was her chance. She rushed to the controls and shut down the anti-gravity system. Sky High began free-falling toward the ground, picking up speed fast. Will flew underneath the building and tried to hold it up, but the weight was crushing. He could barely keep the school from crashing. Just in time, Magenta, still in her guinea pig form, reached the control room and chewed through the wire. The anti-gravity system reactivated, and Sky High floated safely back into the sky. Meanwhile, Stitches tried to escape with the bus full of baby superheroes, but Ron Wilson kicked him straight out of the bus mid-takeoff. Professor Medulla was still a baby, but his brain was just as brilliant as ever. He modified the pacifier and restored everyone back to their normal ages. Steve and Josie thanked Will's friends and gave them trophies for helping save Sky High. Everyone gathered at the homecoming party. Will lifted into the air, flew up with Layla, and kissed her high above the crowd. Gwen and her henchmen were locked away in the powerless detention room, their villainous plans finally over. And Ron Wilson? He accidentally fell into toxic waste and actually gained real superpowers. If you enjoyed the recap, make sure to like, share, and I'll see you in the next one.